Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in September. The month of September was actually a very good reading month for me. Really, this has just been an amazing reading summer for me. I've read more books in the last 3 months than I've read probably ever. So, not ever, whatever. That didn't make sense. But it's been an amazing 3 months, and September was no exception. So, to start off with some stats, in September I read a total of 20 books and a total of 7,346 pages. Of those books, I read 2 books by male authors and 18 books by female authors. 8 of those books were 2020 releases and the rest were before this year. I had 7 5-star books, 7 4-star books, 5 3-stars, 1 2-star, and no 1-star books. So overall, whether that be the number of books I read or the quality of books I read, it was a great month. So for genres, I read 7 adult, 5 new adult, and 8 young adult books. And within those age groups, I read 3 thrillers, 2 manga, 6 fantasy, 1 science fiction, 5 contemporary romance, and 3 historical fiction. So overall, very broad. I feel like it was just a very broad range of books overall this month, so I'm so excited. I do, however, not have them in order on my cart here. They're all just kind of piled at the top. So I'm just going to grab as I go from the top, and whatever I pick up will be the one I talk about. So the first book I have here is Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. This was the Literally Dead Book Club's pick for September, and I wasn't really interested in reading this one because it didn't really sound like something I wanted to read, but I decided to pick it up because I like talking about books with people, and I really enjoyed this book. It's not a thriller. I feel like a lot of people went into this with the expectations that it would be super fast-paced, thrilling, lots of plot twists, that kind of thing. It's definitely more of a slow build, suspense, kind of like a creepy, atmospheric book, and I really enjoyed it. It really gave me chills. I actually listened to this one on audio, and the narrator did a wonderful job setting the mood and the tone of the story. I highly recommend giving that a listen if you didn't enjoy reading it physically with your eyes. But I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. My readathon for this month was the Royal Readathon, I believe, by Booked and Busy. So the books that I read for that one, I have a whole vlog with my wrap up and everything, so I will link that somewhere. But just to quickly recap what I read Return of the Prince by Nana Malone. This is a royal romance about a prince who is on the run from an assassin, and he has to go home and face his past lover who now hates him. And I had a lot of issues with this one. It was very confusing. A lot of things I felt like were either glossed over or didn't make sense, so I ended up giving this one 2 stars. It was okay. The group book for the Royal Readathon was A Song of Wraith and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. This is I'm still not sure if it's young adult or adult. There's no real like adult themes in it, so I'm gonna go with young adults. But this is an African-inspired fantasy, and I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't like a new favorite fantasy, and it could be because I listened to this on audiobook, but I just didn't really connect with any of the characters. I wasn't really invested in the story, so I kind of didn't care how it ended. That being said, I thought it was written really well, and I liked the atmosphere of the culture and how it's not really like a lot of the other young adult fantasies that we get. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. I thought it was very magical and action-packed, and it had a lot of things going for it. So I definitely could see why so many people really enjoy this one. I just thought it was okay. Another book I read this month was an e-arc, which is Common Goal, and I can't remember who the author is, but I will put a picture of the book here. And this was a LGBTQ plus hockey romance, and I enjoyed it. I really liked the characters, like their personalities and how they developed. But it wasn't really anything new. It wasn't like a very exciting romance. And honestly, I forgot a lot about what happened in this book. So it was okay. I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars. Okay, so the next book I have here is One by One by Ruth Ware. This is her newest thriller, although I wouldn't necessarily say that it's very thrillery or thrilling. But it was more of a like slow build kind of mystery where you're trying to put the pieces together. I would say the biggest issue I've seen people have is that the plot twist is kind of obvious, but I don't really, like, I can see that, but I didn't really care because I just loved the way that the mystery was put together. So I actually really enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun reading it, and actually Buddy read this with one of my coworkers, and so it was fun talking with her and trying to like piece it together before we found out who it was and tell each other our theories. So that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this. I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. I also ended up rereading the entire A Court of Thorns and Roses series this month. And I'm not going to like go into in-depth thoughts on this series, but I loved it. I gave them all 5 out of 5 stars. This is one of my favorite series of all time. And I'm so happy that I finally got around to rereading this. The next book I read this month is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. This is a science fiction-esque book about people who kill themselves to become like super people. Supers? I feel like there was a name for them and I can't remember. I have an issue with this because it really goes into depth about attempted suicide and self-harm, and I haven't seen anyone really talk about it. That being said, I really did enjoy the characters and kind of piecing together the histories, because this is told in multiple timelines, but it's not told chronologically. So you have to really like piece together the story, and that's really my favorite kind of storytelling, is trying to piece together everything that happened. So I enjoyed it. I ended up giving this like 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like I said, I love the characters. I just wasn't really fully invested. I will definitely pick up Vengeful in the future. But yeah, it wasn't a new favorite. So another book that I read that I actually forgot to grab, I for some reason put it up and didn't leave it on my cart, but that was Catwoman by Sarah J. Maas. This was the only Sarah J. Maas book that I hadn't yet read, and so I wanted to read it. I ended up listening to the audiobook for it, and I loved it. I don't know why. I was worried that I wouldn't love it as much, maybe because it's like a superhero, supervillain story, and I don't know why, but I loved it, and I gave it 5 stars. Next, I have Spellslinger by Sebastian de Castell. I loved this book, and I went out immediately and bought the entire rest of the series because this is going to be one of my new favorite series. I just know that it is. I do have a vlog filmed. I filmed an entire reading vlog for this. I just have to edit it and put it together and all that good stuff. But that is coming soon, so I don't want to go too in-depth in my thoughts. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I love the characters, I love the world and the magic system, and I definitely can't wait to see where it goes next. The last e-arc that I read was Moriarty the Patriot Volume 1. This is a manga or graphic novel, I'm not really sure. I think it was a manga. But this is like a villain origin story for Moriarty, and I thought it was done really well. I really loved getting to know Moriarty as a child and how he came to be the villain that we know him as today. And he actually has a very complex, well-written backstory that I loved. And I definitely want to continue with it because I think it's just going to be so fascinating to see how it evolves. And I really hope that Sherlock Holmes eventually comes in so we can see how Moriarty came to decide to like challenge him. Like, I think it's just going to be so fascinating. I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. One of my favorite manga that I've read in a while. The next 3 books I have are the last 3 books in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. So I read Hunting Prince Dracula, Escaping from Houdini, and Capturing the Devil, all by Kerri Maniscalco. I absolutely adore this series, and I am so glad that I finally finished reading it. If you haven't picked these up, I highly recommend picking them up, but also give the audiobooks a chance. Sorry, that was weird. Give the audiobooks a chance because the narrator does a wonderful job narrating these. And I love all of the characters, and I love the romance because this is a very slow build romance, a 4-book long slow build romance. But let me tell you, when it comes to a head in this final book, oh, it's just done so well. And I ended up giving, I believe I gave these 2 4 out of 5 stars, and then I gave the final book 5 out of 5 stars. It just kept getting better with each book, and I loved it so much. The first book is Conventionally Yours by Annabeth Albert. This is an enemies to lovers college romance about these 2 boys who are rivals in this gaming community, and they end up having to go on a road trip together, and it's just so beautifully written. It's such a heartwarming, wonderful, loving story, and I loved it so much. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, hands down, one of my favorite books of the year. Highly recommend it. Oh, it was just so good. I don't know why I'm ending on like the lowest note, but I had 1 DNF this year, one DNF this month, and that was Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. There was nothing wrong with this book, and honestly, I probably will give it a retry in the future because I think part of the reason I didn't enjoy it is because I listened to the audiobook, and this narrator was not for me. She was not very good. And especially since the first like 200 pages, maybe not that much, like the first half of the book is very, very slow. It is a very slow build, but the atmosphere is very creepy and it's done really well. So I think you just kind of have to be in the right mindset for it. And once you get to like the real horror parts, because the first half of this book is just historical fiction. There are no horror. There's like occasionally something kind of creepy happens, but until the last like half of the book, there's no real horror or creepy or thriller mystery elements. So if you can make it past the first 100 or so pages, you probably will really enjoy it. And that's why I really do want to give it a try again in the future, just when I'm in a different mindset and I am prepared for a slow build mystery. But those are all the books that I read in September, I think. Hopefully I got all of them. But yeah, I loved almost everything that I read this month, and even if I didn't love it, I really enjoyed pretty much everything. So it was a very good month for me. I would love to know what some of your favorite books that you read this month were. If you read any of my books that I read, we should talk about it because I love talking about books that I read, whether I liked them or didn't like them, doesn't matter. I love talking about books. It's why I'm on YouTube. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you should give me a like, and I'll see you next time. Bye!